There are lots of tools today that will make chord progressions for you, but today I want to take a look at one of my personal favorites, learning how to write them. In the next 10 minutes or so, let's figure out how to take a simple 5-chord progression like this and turn that into an endless series of variations, something like this. I'll quickly walk you through how we came up with the initial chords and then how we achieve that level of variation, what I think sounds like a very different chord progression by the time we get to the end. And then how we can take that and change it further to get an almost endless source of ideas. Maybe the most important part of this is coming up with a really strong progression that will be our initial idea that we can then vary. I'm sure you've seen these sorts of blocked triads that I demonstrated first. They're these snowman looking chords where we take a root note and then stack thirds on top of it. This progression is just a series of 5 of these triads, and my only rule is that I can never repeat the same chord twice. So if I choose a different bass note each time, I should be in good shape. And I'm not doing this just for the sake of having a rule, I'm doing this to avoid centering my chord progression around one single chord. We don't want this to feel circular, we want it to feel like it progresses. Chord progression. Anytime I repeat the same chord, it feels like that chord is more important than the other chords. So this ensures that each new chord feels like a fresh, new harmonic change. It's not spoiled by any of the chords that came before it. We can also do this by ensuring that we never have too many shared notes from one chord to the next. That would be considered telegraphing or kind of giving away the harmony that's about to happen. But the main thing is just don't repeat the same chord twice. What if we turn these triads into super triads? Basically, that just means we're going to make a taller snowman. So let's stack a couple more thirds on top of those triads. So congratulations, we've just created extended tertian chords. Now, between the time that it took me to film this video and the time that I'm getting around to editing it, I sent this idea out to my newsletter subscribers. And someone replied with a very astute observation that none of these chords are in the same key. They just seem to be kind of chosen at random. He was absolutely right. They are not in the same key, but they are also not random. These chords are non-functional, so they don't follow the same rules as a typical functional progression that we might be used to. The entire goal, the reason that non-functional harmony was developed, was to avoid the predictability of functional harmony. So all of those formulas that you learned about 5 always going to 1, assigning Roman numerals to chords in the first place, all of that is part of functional harmony. It's predictable harmony. And that strikes me as interesting because people tell me a lot of times that what they want to avoid in their own music is being too predictable, too repetitive. And as it turns out, composers already kind of solved this issue over a century ago. We just sort of forgot about that for some reason. And everyone on YouTube went back to teaching the circle of fifths and how to assign Roman numerals to every chord. Both of those things have their place, but I find this to be a much more interesting and inspiring way of thinking about harmony. If you find this at all interesting and would like to learn a little bit more about it with some more examples, I did make a free ebook that is a downloadable PDF in the description below that will take you through some more in-depth examples. Back to me. So this is a cool progression and all, but it feels a little blocky and a little jumpy. Let's see if we can figure out some way to transition from one chord to the next a bit more smoothly, a bit more musically. Let's look at just the first chord and see if we can swap some notes around. This is called an inversion. It's where we take all of the same notes of the chord and redistribute them, flip them around. It would be like taking a word and swapping all of the letters around to make a new word. It's respelling the chord. Let's use that same technique on the first three chords. And I'm going to keep the last two chords in root position, where they are now, just because I think that works out well and gives a nice shape to our bass line. Now we have this progression. And let's assign each one of these chords a number, just 1 through 5. We're not analyzing this from a theory perspective, we're just assigning each one a number. Now remember in the very beginning, just a few minutes ago, when I mentioned don't repeat a chord, and that's where this is going to really pay off for us. So now I have a series of chords that I should be able to rearrange in any order, and it will still produce a chord progression that works. Each chord feels like a fresh new harmony, and now I have a lot of variations. I can swap these around, put them in any order, and they should still work. I can choose my favorite based on my taste. So when you start off with strong material and you make sure that you aren't centering your chord progressions by repeating the same chord too many times, then you have an almost endless set of variations and experiments that you can perform on it to get more material out of a simple chord progression like this. And this is a technique that I use quite often. And I don't even need to download a MIDI chord pack, which you probably saw an ad for before this video. If you'd like to see more non-MIDI chord pack related videos, you can watch one of these right here about harmony, because it's something that I've really been enjoying talking about recently, one of my favorite subjects.